Namaste. Welcome back, beautiful souls. Today I'm here to share with you some more tarot books. And the theme for this episode, as well as the next one, are tarot books that have activities to help with your healing, with self-reflection, your inward journey, grief work, all of this. And so today I'm going to share 4 books. I was going to just rattle through a whole bunch of them, but I decided to break this up and to do it over 2 episodes. And I'm going to start with Tarot for Transformation. Today I'm going to do some reading. I'm going to share with you specific parts of each of these books. And I don't have a microphone close to my mouth. I am in the process of, I had a cord defect, so I apologize. I'll try to keep my head right facing towards the computer. Okay. This is a tome. This is a very large book. It is heavy. It reminds me of a university text. This book is, really big, really heavy. However, I would suggest that this book is something you would want to have in hand. And I know we all have different relationships. I know we all have different relationships with paper and ebooks versus books in hand. But there's something about this book that I think will help to step into the practical work that this book requires. Okay, so let's begin. Throughout this book, there are an abundance of amazing quotes. Hi, Antoinette, thank you. Amazing quotes, and they are spaced out. What I mean by that is there is space in the book for you to respond to the quotes. There's no suggestions here for you to pick a tarot card or draw a tarot card to reflect on them. Hi, Fernanda. But just the way that this is laid out, it's really beautiful. And this is also the kind of paper that you can write on. And there's nothing on the back page. So it's set up brilliantly to work. I mean, for you to work in. Okay. When a book says, please read, I think you should read. And one of the things that Andy Matzner says here is that this is not a book to read cover to cover. This is a book in which you do the exercises and you do the work. So this is not something you pick up and you read over the summer. This is a book that you would purchase if you wanted to sit down and really have some guidance for your inward journey and inward self-study. You can see from the table of contents that the exercises in this book are organized by tarot card. There is, of course, an introduction and a chapter called On the Nature of Change. Because, of course, all of this, hi Dee, welcome, all of this is about me and my ever-changing nature. And in order to understand and evolve and grow and heal, change is inevitable. And so kind of an important chapter. Now, what I thought I would do, because I'm recording this live in August, this is the middle of Leo season, I thought that I would go to the chapter on strength and read some sections and offer you some of the prompts in the strength section. Okay. The pictorial key to the tarot, Waite writes that the Strength card is connected with the divine mystery of union. He also states, this card has nothing to do with self-confidence in the ordinary sense, though this has been suggested, but it concerns the confidence of those whose strength is God, who have found their refuge in Him. I would like to suggest that we use Waite's sentiments to bring our attention to the idea of the divine spark. In the Gnostic tradition, among others, this refers to that part of God that lives within each of us. The purpose of life is to release that spark so that it might connect with the divine energy source. We can see the lemniscate above the maiden's head, perhaps in this case representing the outcome of recognizing our divine nature. Perfect, unending unity bound up in the unimpeded flow of energy, and in that sense, the maiden and the lion represent opposing forces that need to be reconciled in order to attain balance. So that's a familiar concept to most of us, right? That the lion and the maiden represent these different aspects of self. And one of the things that I offer and say over and over in the tarot is that this is a theme that if you don't get it in this card, it's going to come back in the next card, because the tarot is a journey of continuing exercises of harmonization and rebalance. Yet it is significant that the maiden is subduing the lion. Whatever the lion represents, the maiden finds it necessary to forestall its efforts. And what if the lion is the aspect of ourselves that is self-critical? And the maiden is our soul, our divine spark, which knows that we are perfect as we are. Of course, there is a struggle between the two, but in this card, self-kindness wins. This card is called Strength. I think the bravest thing that you can do to love yourself is to love yourself for who you are. Sure, you'll have those voices in your head telling you all sorts of awful things that make you hate and doubt yourself. We all talk to ourselves. You are not crazy. That is part of being human, which is why the Strength card is so profound. The way to vanquish our negative thoughts, the ones that make us feel unworthy and unwanted, is through self-forgiveness, self-love, self-compassion. Instead of power over the way of the lion, it's power with the way of the maiden. I'm just going to read this Carl Jung quote at the bottom of the page. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. So here in this section follow 6 more quotes on strength, and they are all equally profound. Again, with space to write and reflect and contemplate. Following that introductory section, there is a commentary on cultivating compassion, a caveat about self-esteem, learning to recognize your self-worth, you and your strengths, self-compassion exercise, becoming selfish about self-care, boundaries revisited, self-care vision board, the power of self-forgiveness, okay, so a lot. There's a lot of work to do in connection with the Strength card. So I'm just going to choose one and expand on it. So I'm going to go to the section called Becoming Selfish About Self-Care, Boundaries Revisited. So I'm assuming that in a previous one, I don't quite remember which card, the issue of boundaries was discussed. So he is circling back here to a really important issue of boundaries. And then we have more really powerful quotes. So one thing that Andy Matzner has is this incredible library of quotes that can take you into your self-work. And this first one is by Eleanor Brown. Self-care is not selfish. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. People generally find it easier to show compassion and kindness to another person or animal than to themselves. I have found that people often feel guilty about being nice to themselves because doing so somehow means they are selfish. This is an obstacle to self-compassion that is time to address. I would like you to think of something or someone that you have loved unconditionally, a pet, stuffed animal, parent, friend, partner, or child. You know that when you love someone or something unconditionally, it means that there are no strings attached. You will always love and want the best for that person or animal, no matter what they do to you or someone else. You might disapprove of their actions or be disappointed by something they did, but you still love and care about them. Are you responding to that quote? Yeah, that's an amazing quote. Hello, Silver Spiral. And you especially won't hesitate to attend to that person or animal when you see that they are in need. What gets in the way of showing that same compassion to yourself? An answer I typically hear, I feel like I'm being selfish if I pay attention to myself. But I believe that paying attention to yourself and giving yourself nurturing is not selfish. This is because you need to balance the energy you give out with the energy that you take in for yourself. And again, a very common theme in the tarot is this giving and receiving energy. That is why it is not selfish to rejuvenate. If you identify as a helper or are a parent, remember, in order to be of assistance, you need energy. Okay, so then he goes on, he talks about filling your cup. And then in a section, there are several questions for you to journal on. And I'll read you a few of these. Number 1. Why might it make sense in your mind to attend to another person's needs and ignore your own? Hello, Saskia and Amelia. Welcome. And I will pause and perhaps we can respond to one of these. What is something you'd like to do but won't because you're afraid people will see you as selfish? That's a really good question. If you are seen by others as selfish, what are you afraid will happen? And the last one on the page, how easy is it for you to tell yourself, I am worth it? What would make it easier? I think these are very powerful questions, and ones that if we are to find a way to peace that we need to find time to sit with and answer. And it is, this is just such very, very powerful, powerful work. Now, this section on becoming selfish about self-care has 2 more full pages. This section here says, now let's get a sense of how you are doing in terms of self-care. How do you currently show yourself affection? How do you currently show yourself appreciation? What do you currently do for fun? What do you currently do for relaxation? And what do you currently do that gives you pleasure? Based on what you've written above, please answer the following questions. What is something you could do to nourish yourself today? What or who would you like to drop from your life? These are fantastic questions. And this segment, which is just one part of the reflections on the Strength card, is something that you may choose as a theme for the entire Leo season. Or perhaps you would take a book like this. I think this is a book that you would work through, more than a year. This is a great piece of work that uses the archetypes of the tarot to, maybe help you find how the frequency of the archetype is reflecting for you at this time. In the final section of this segment, now I'd like to issue a challenge. Every day for a week, see if you can, and I'm going to read all of these, okay? Notice 3 things that go right. As you do, for each one, take a moment to offer a short prayer of gratitude. Now, that is also very good filling your cup sort of exercise. Next one, pick one way in which to nurture yourself and do it. Pick one way to comfort yourself and do it. Make a promise to yourself and keep it. Do something nice for yourself. Do something nice for another person or animal. This book, I think, would also make a wonderful, if you met live with a circle of people, this would be a fantastic workbook to work through. And even if some members in that circle weren't familiar with the tarot, I think it's such a universal, these are such universal concepts. It's really quite something. Let me highlight Dee's comment here. The conditioning of society places certain groups of people in the caring role, and if they stray from that path, they are condemned. Women who leave a relationship and don't take care of children. How true that is. I learned from one of my teachers that the excessive caretaking archetype is a way of processing grief, or not a way of, opposite. It's a way of covering up grief and not dealing with grief. I think it's a really powerful archetype to work with. The next section is the power of self-forgiveness. So for those of you that don't know who Andy Matzner is, there is a very short bio at the back, and I'll share this with you because I'm going to share with you one more book by Andy Matzner. Licensed clinical social worker, psychotherapist, and tarot reader. He also teaches psychology, mental health skills, and gender studies as a part-time professor at Virginia Western Community College and Hollins University. Originally from Long Island, New York, Andy spent extended amounts of time living in Hawaii, Japan, Thailand, and Australia. And I tell you, there's something, this really resonates with me, because when people have lived in extended periods of time in different countries in the world, I think it really opens them to seeing life through a larger lens and resonating, right, with different frequencies, different people, different cultures, languages, and ways of being. He's also written a book called This Is Me, Voices from Hawaii's Mahu and Transgender Communities, Male Bodies, Women's Souls, Personal Narratives of Thailand's Transgender Youth, the Tarot Activity Book, which we're going to look at, Everyone Has a Story, Using the Hero's Journey and Narrative Therapy to Reframe the Struggle of Mental Illness, and Journaling the Tarot, a little book of big questions. Okay, so I said this was a large book. I just want to show you how large this book is, okay? It weighs several pounds. It's heavy. It has a rose petal finish and pages upon which you can write. Okay, so the next book is another book by Andy Matzner. This is much smaller. Price is not on the back, but I have linked, I have put affiliate Amazon links below, so you can check out the prices of these books. And I use affiliate links. I mean, I hardly get anything from them, but every little penny counts. So thank you for using those links. All right, so let's have a look at this one because it is organized quite differently. The first book, I believe, was published in 2020. No, just let me double check. Yes, 2020. And this little book, which is also a gem, I'll show you how it's organized in just a moment. Hello, Perry. No, that is not a light read. Yeah, like I said, it's a fantastic workbook. All right, so this one came before. This is 2013. All right, so let's have a look at this one. Yes, he has craft activities in this one. Okay. Shall I read this Lao Tzu quote? At the center of your being, you have the answer. You know who you are, and you know what you want. This book is organized into 3 sections: conversation starters, writing and journaling prompts, and arts and crafts. And I think this is a really, I'm going to share a couple of these with you, a really fun section. I want to share with you a couple of things from each of the sections. And I'm just going to do it randomly. I had chosen a couple, but one of the crafts I do want to share, but I'm going to just do this randomly. All right, so let's go to page 33, because 33 is a great number. And these are conversation starters. Again, these could be used as personal conversation starters. But if you are part of a tarot group, these would be great exercises to begin your meeting with. Lost and found. What is something you have lost? Can you find a card to represent it? Is it something you need to find again? And if so, which card will help you in rediscovering it? Now, I also think that many of these conversation starters could be turned into tarot either spreads or what I imagine. So let's expand on this lost and found idea. Let's suppose that you are, I'm going to do this and grab a deck. Okay. I've got the Herb Crafter's Tarot in hand. I was thinking this because there's lots of objects, but maybe that's not the right tarot deck. Okay, let's suppose I don't know. I'm just thinking about this. I haven't done this exercise. So let's suppose you've lost your hammer and you need the hammer to do some sort of a project. What card symbolizes the hammer and what card symbolizes locating it? And what I'm thinking is that the card that symbolizes locating it, maybe it is that Eight of Pentacles. You would shuffle the cards, and you would shuffle and cut the cards, and then you could look for the Eight of Pentacles in your deck and look at the cards on either side of it for an indication of where that is. I usually use a pendulum in the process of deduction for finding things, but this is kind of intriguing. So just mull that over a little bit. Okay. So let's look at, you know what? This is a little bit like the other book, but it's in much smaller snippets. Okay. So this is still in conversation starters, and this is similes part 2. And there are a list of similes, and which cards do you think would be best matches for the following similes? If doing with other people, please explain your reasoning. As brave as a lion. You know, this is really good because this might also give you ways to find new associations or more ways to talk about a card. Okay, so as brave as a lion, as blind as a bat, as dry as a bone, as gentle as a lamb, as happy as a lark. And you know, it's funny, when I read as dry as a bone, I was thinking about people who are so dry, so boring, so they're just not fun at all or interesting. I wasn't thinking about weather or anything like that. There's a whole list. They're quite good. When I read this last one, I've never heard this. Have you heard this one before? As welcome as a skunk at a lawn party. And yes, as cool as a cucumber is here as well, too. So there are an abundance of conversation starters that you could use as weekly exercises for yourself to dive into the tarot. Okay, now let's go to the journal prompts, because this gets a little bit deeper. I'm going to share facing your inner critic. The inner critic is a destructive voice in your head that offers judgmental commentary, usually on a regular basis. The inner critic often gets in the way of making positive changes in your life by making you feel bad about yourself or a situation. Where does this inner critic come from? After all, you were not born with the critic's voice already stuck in your head. Often, your inner critic is the internalized voice of somebody close to you who said mean or judgmental things to you when you were a child. It could be the consistent message you received from your father that you would never amount to anything, or the disappointment you felt from your mother because you weren't perfect. Perhaps it was a teacher who made fun of you because you weren't smart, or a preacher whose sermons about ending up in hell seemed especially directed at you. As children, we soak up these messages, and as time goes on, we start believing them. The voices we hear growing up actually become part of our own psyches. And so he goes on, and I'm going to read part of this exercise. So the process of understanding your inner critic. What does your inner critic look like? Is it a person, a monster, an animal, or a thing? How is it dressed? And what colors are associated with it? What is it doing when it criticizes you? Is it standing over you, sitting beside you, leaning over your shoulder? What's its voice like? Does it whisper? Is it loud? Is it biting? And this exercise really takes this apart in tremendous detail. You know, and I think this this would be really great to, you know, sometimes we get stuck on the 16 faces of the court cards and how they are showing up for us at this time is quite different from how they showed up for us last year or 10 years ago. And these sorts of exercises really can really help with that. So the second part of this book is journal prompts. Now, I want to go to the arts and crafts because I think this is just really fun. And the activity that caught my mind, I'm going to respond to the pendulum stuff in just a minute. I'll take a little break. We'll talk about pendulums after I share this exercise. So the one that caught my eye was called Mason Jar, page 200. And, you know, I can imagine that drawing a tarot card that doesn't sit well, it causes a lump in my throat. Maybe it's a response to a particular question. And I know that that card, I need to love that card. I need to deepen my connection with that card. And, you know, sometimes this can come from a new deck that rubs you the wrong way. And so the idea here is to use a mason jar, suitable size, to artistically feature a card. You will place, you know, some rice or some sand in the bottom so the card can stand up. And the process is to fill and decorate the jar to highlight the card. And so before you put the card in the sand in the jar, you might paint it or, I don't know, decorate it in some way. And then you would put some objects in the jar to heal, feed, chat with the particular tarot card. And then you would put this on your altar, next to your bed, on your windowsill, on your kitchen counter. I think this is a really great exercise, particularly for a card that you feel kind of hurt by. Okay, I'm going to read you just a couple of these, and then I'm going to go back to the chat. And so there is expressive art, totem pole, tarot totem, the portal, the wall. I mean, there's just so many of them. Zen tarot garden, coat of arms, higher power, mosaic, the detail, vision board, tarot scribble. There is a lot. There is a lot. And there is also a great piece of juice at the end of this book that I really, really like. And that has to do with a therapy practice by a hypnotherapist and psychiatrist named Milton Erickson. And the idea is that you do something random to help you deepen your understanding of a particular situation. And there's a list here of all kinds of great things. So here's one. Take your card with you into the shower. It is okay for it to get wet. Prop it up somewhere while you bathe and dry it off when you're finished with your shower. Do this for 10 days. Find a spot outside your home and bury your card. It can be in soil or under a rock. Return to retrieve it in exactly 48 hours. And there's this whole list of random activities, not all which destroy your tarot card. But again, like the mason jar activity, it's a way to get personal with your tarot. Okay. So I'm going to go back to Dee's comment here. And I would I'd happy to do another chat about pendulum work, using pendulums for healing, using pendulums for decision making, using pendulums for finding things, among other things. Fernanda, it's wonderful. Carrie likes pendulums too. Okay. And Saskia, yes, there is an old video. I can't remember what I did, but of course I would review that before I did another chat. Perry commented on the inner critic. It is not my intention to make decisions based on what is revealed in this place of chatter. Yeah, and it does come up for all of us. Emilia, you have one? I'm sure you would love its connection. It's energy work, right? Because it responds to your personal energy. Okay. And I think outside in nature as well too. And we have a new visitor. Hello from Germany. Welcome to Peak Dam Tarot. Welcome. Namaste. I remember when oh my goodness, there's been a few different places in nature trails where I found shrines that people walking on that path have all contributed to, and it's amazing. I know. It's really funny. Yes. I am laughing. Okay. So, right. So, Amelia, yes, you're cooking. Oh my God. If you haven't seen Amelia's cooking her cards video, it's really something. I did share it on my community page, I think. And Perry started with the I Ching. And Janine has a pendulum as well. Okay. All right. So I will do another one on pendulums. And yes, I would love, this is great as well too, especially when you have, I love doing bibliomancy when I have a, not with a Bible, of course, but with a great colorful tarot guidebook, one that has nice binding, and you can open the pages and just randomly choose a card that way. I love that. And hello to Leona. Do you have a preferred tarot deck to connect to nature? I have found lots of oracles, but trouble pinpointing the perfect tarot deck. I have taken the Wild Unknown into the wild many times. I have multiple copies of the Wild Unknown, and I think it was a challenge at some point. I took photos of the Wild Unknown in the wild. So that's the only one that I have done that with. Yeah. If anybody else has suggestions, please respond to Leona. And again, welcome to you. Okay, so, and Saskia, of course, because Saskia is a Tai Chi practitioner and maybe instructor as well, too. So, yeah. All right, I have 2 more books to share with you today. And many of you will be familiar with Lisa Robertson's Pathworking the Tarot, and most of you will be familiar with this practice. But in case you don't know this practice or you don't know this book, I'm going to share it with you. All right. This is a small, okay? This is a little, very little book. All right. Half the size and smaller than the tarot activity book. I'm surprised. I thought this was going to be a big book when I ordered it. I don't know why, but anyway. Let's go to the table of contents. For each of the major arcana, there are suggestions for pathworking the tarot. And this is not something you need a book to learn how to do. But if this is not the way your brain works, this could be really, really helpful. The idea, now there's different ways of looking at pathworking. Very simply, you have a card, you sit in contemplation of it, just the card, no journal, right? And you sit and you stare, slightly in focus, out of focus, and you observe the bits and pieces of the card. And you may or may not wander into the card and have a bit of a meditation there. You may ask questions before you go in. You may set intentions before you go into the card. But let's look at what Lisa offers here. And again, why don't we go to Strength again, just to see what this book offers in comparison to the book the first book we looked at. Okay. This card could very well be called Courage, for strength and courage seem to be only separated by the slightest of degrees. Just like courage, strength comes in varied forms and means different things depending on the context in which it is being used. Strength could be physical, emotional, intellectual, or spiritual. It could also be compassion and kindness, which are other elements of courage. We all require different facets of strength depending on the challenges we face, what problems we wish to solve, or what new and scary dream we wish to pursue. I'm going to skip ahead here. There are many obstacles and challenges that your current journey will bring. Some will terrify you, and others will reveal parts of yourself that you never knew existed. In this section of pathworking, it is divided into different styles, I suppose, of pathworking. So there is intentional, intuitive, wandering. So 3, okay? And so if you would like to pull out a strength card, I will read to you the approach for each of these methods of wandering into the card. Firstly, intentional. Go ahead and pull the strength card from your deck and lay it down face up in front of you. Keep the remainder of the deck in your hands and shuffle it gently as you ask the strength card a question. Your question is this: how might I better use you today? Once you have asked your question and feel you have shuffled your cards enough, hold the deck close to your chest in between your closed palms, fingers pointed up. Take 3 nice deep breaths and then open your hands and split your deck. The card that is on top and facing you is the answer to your question. Place it down next to the strength card. These 2 cards will be your guiding energy today, Keep them somewhere you can see them as you move about your day. Maybe even take a picture of them and make them the lock screen of your phone. If you have to work or travel, you can't take your cards with you. Oh, if you can't take them with you. Each time you see these two cards, remember that the card that answered your question is the path to service today. So this is not a meditative approach. This is one where we intentionally remember to work with the card throughout the day and not let it just be a moment in time. Okay? Intuitive. The Strength card in the Animal Totem Tarot was created to show what happens when strength is seen as a burden. The ox is strong, but his strength is used not for himself, but in servitude to others. This idea that strength itself is not something favorable may seem to go against the grain of how most people think, as we often believe that courage, fortitude, and might are positive traits. But how many times have your gifts been a burden? This burden is exactly what we are going to meditate on today. Take some nice deep breaths and bring to mind the last time someone asked you to use your gift or your strength in a way that felt heavy or uncomfortable to you. Bring it to your mind's eye and see it in full color. Take another deep breath and simply observe the feelings that come up as you watch the scene over and over again in your mind. Don't make any judgments. Just let the movie play along. Take another nice deep breath and now repeat this mantra. My gift is not a burden and I am sorry for making it feel unloved. I love it and I am grateful I have it in my life. Again, do not force anything. Just keep breathing and reciting your mantra. If it feels more comfortable to close your eyes, please do so and continue with this meditation and mantra until you feel complete. And there's a little bit more. And then the wandering section. I just caught the word reverse. And one of the things that I do when I'm wandering into a card is that I turn the card sideways. I turn the card upside down. I look at the back. I imagine going in from the back to the front, or imagine entering from the left side or the right side. When I'm really sitting and looking at a card, I really look at the card. And Lisa suggests the following. How often do you think about this card in reverse or upside down? There is something very liberating about starting your quest for strength backwards. In other words, take time to lean into all the excuses of the fears and all the doubts that stop you from doing things you claim you want to do. Humans are highly creative beings, and the number of excuses we make or reasons we give on a daily basis is quite staggering. Today, stop and pay attention every time you hear yourself saying, I can't. For at the core of all of these, I can't statements are two very powerful emotions, fear and doubt. These two emotions tell a story, and every time you find yourself saying, no to something, it is your upside down strength card story playing out. Each time you listen to your story, ask yourself, if what you are listening to is based on fact and if you have any real evidence that the story has merit. This exercise is not so much about facing your fears or even overcoming them, but more about seeing them for what they are, a story you have created to stop you from moving out of your current situation. So in this book, it's more than wandering into the cards and having a meditation with them. There are detailed prompts for each of the major arcana to explore them in ways that may need healing. Okay. All right. Lovely to see you chatting here. Okay. And the last book for today is Tarot for Troubled Times by Shaheen Miro and Teresa Reed. Confront your shadow, heal yourself, and transform the world. One of the things this book does is it starts with the personal, the inner work. And then in the third section, it takes those reflections out into the world and asks you, so now what? Now what are you going to do with this? How are you going to change your family, your community, your workplace in order to honor what you have moved through? This book was published in 2019. Okay. Part 1, The Fool, a focus on the personal. In this section, we're beginning our work to understand the shadow and engage with it. And all that is required is an open mind and a willingness to take the first big, brave step like the Fool. Now, I've read through several of these and reflected on many of these chapters. How should we do this book? Okay, I want to do chapter 4, but okay. So in the beginning section, the initial reflection, we're looking at the energy of the Fool. And I know many of you have been prompted to ask yourself, what is in the knapsack of the Fool? Well, in this particular section, it takes it to a kind of a whole new level. And prompts you to look at how you enter the world, prepared or not prepared. I'm going to just skip down here because there's some really good things here. When you draw from your knapsack or your inner reserve, you fortify yourself against the rough terrain of the great wilderness of life. And you don't just survive, you thrive. Maybe you've spent your whole life feeling like you're fighting an uphill battle, but met with continuous challenges, roads to nowhere, and endless surprises. Many others have too, but there is a different way of living and being, a spiritual way led by the wisdom of your inner compass. This goes on to talk about reflections on the actual Fool card and to answer some personal questions about the Fool in terms of yourself at this particular time and this particular place. Let's go back. You might be inspired to step up. What if you could be certain the necessary rituals and utensils were there for you whenever you need them? So what they're talking about here is preparation and wandering into your day with all that you need. And when I was reading this chapter, there were certain things that came to mind. And I remember one of the things that I love wearing dresses. I love wearing dresses that have pockets. And in my pockets, I often have either palm stones or, something tactile that I can hold onto, that if I am wandering into the muggle world and it is triggering me, that all I need to do is put my hands in my pocket and to find that connection. In the same way, when I travel, which I haven't done for so long, or even when I go to the city to go shopping, a big day, go to the city, go to Costco, go to the mall, oh my goodness, I need to prepare my backpack and I need to awaken to how my day will go so much better if I do that by either placing shungite in my pockets, wearing some sort of a protective pendulum, carrying things that will shield me throughout the day and also energize me, making sure that I'm adequately nourished and I have proper snacks and I have water with whatever little things I want in it. So this chapter really reminded me of the how this card can be with it, is an important card to be with us all the time as we journey through the day. The gift of this book, and I said I wanted to go to the archetype section. The second part of this book is called A Mirror on the Self. And chapter 4, the first chapter, introduces the archetypes for healing and transformation. So I want to go to that and share with you from there. As you read through the description of each archetype, you may find yourself recognizing aspects of your own life and personality. If you identify more with the shadow side of your archetype, do not judge yourself. Keep an open mind and be willing to acknowledge this part of you. The cards are just a mirror to reveal your challenges and gifts and all the different ways to grow your power and potential. Remember, at some point in everyone's life, they will move between light and shadow parts of their archetype. Let this insight wash over you and open your awareness to something deeper, bigger, and more enriching. Although you will have one main archetype based on your birth card calculation, you may find that you identify with others too. So in this, I don't know how many of you have done path card, like life path card calculations, or you may have a significator based on your sun sign. Maybe you have chosen, assigned a card that corresponds to your ascendant or other aspects of your astrology. And in this chapter, it gives you there's a great introduction, but I'm going to go to strength again. So if you had solar energy and you connected with Leo as your ascendant or your sun sign, maybe your moon is in Leo, then you would work with this particular card. Or maybe you are looking to harmonize or build your solar plexus chakra. Okay, and this is the offering. Although the Chariot has power, so does the Strength card. But there is no need for force. Instead, this card symbolizes the power within, the feminine use of potency. Instead of aggression, the heroine employs gentle but firm energy. This archetype is the female magician who needs no tools, but only her hands to make magic happen. She is the female leader who uses love to win the war. The shadow side of strength is a lack of courage or a ferocious, untamed ego. The energy can be overbearing but weak at the same time. The father who harshly disciplines his children but can't stand up to his ogre of a boss is an example. A victim mindset is another shadow archetype of the Strength card. Okay. Then there is this section. Then you go to the card itself, and there are affirmations, positive and shadow keywords, and actions to take. So the affirmation for the Strength card is, I use empathy over force to navigate conflict. And I believe there are suggestions what to do with all of these things, like how to work with the affirmation, how to work with the action. And I suppose that many of you have worked with the tarot for a really long time, and you know that you can carry affirmations with you in different ways. So the book begins with asking you about your approach, your view, your perspective of life, and how you can enrich the archetype of the Fool, who in theory journeys through all of this. And then it goes into the aspects of the different mirrors of the tarot. The actions are really, really bold. Confront bigots. Stand up to bullies. Take care of those who feel marginalized. Be a voice for the oppressed, or let people lean on you. And I have to tell you a story, and it's always the supermarket for me. There was a teenage mom who was about almost full-term pregnant with her mother in the grocery store. And she was really uncomfortable. For those of you that have been 9 months pregnant, you know, it's just really, really uncomfortable. And she was young. She was young, maybe, I don't know, maybe 16. And her mom was a tyrant and making her, I saw them a few times in the store. You know, get things down from the shelf, and everything her mother said was just a barking order. And then we got to the grocery store lineup, and I said to her, "You look like you really need to sit down. Please go in front of me." And her mother insisted that they wait and that they take their turn. And I turned to the mother and I said, "No, your daughter needs to sit down and rest right now, and she should not be doing the grocery shopping." And that mother just, I don't know, didn't say anything. And I insisted that they go in front of me and all was taken care of. And, you know, sometimes we need to read a book like this to help us understand how to embrace the archetypes of the tarot. And I've often thought that, you know, we can't really be a good tarot reader until we learn to live the tarot. And that's kind of what I've taken away from some of these books. Okay. And in the third section of this book, like I said, then this is really unique to this. Take the pain you've experienced and use your story to inspire others. Coming full circle, like the World card of the tarot, take your broken heart and channel it into art. Take the healing rituals you've learned and share them with others. Take the light that's inside of you and bring it outside to shine for all. And so there are 3 chapters that discuss on the follow-through, carrying this through, carrying this out into the world. And so that makes this book a little bit different than the others, where in the other books you're really just doing your own inner work. But there's something here in this particular book that kind of, you know, kicks you in the backside and says, all right, what are you going to do about this? So slightly different approaches, all wonderful tarot books for healing and self-discovery. And yeah, so I hope that if you're not familiar with them, you might, anyway, just for your information, sharing my library, because I think I need to do that. And I wish that, you know, people could wander in and out and use my books as a library. They're just tremendous, tremendous resources. So thank you all so much for being here today. And I see you're chatting about the Vikings and Amelia's, what was that deck? You shared it quite a few times in the Facebook group, among other places. That's wonderful. Okay, I'm going to leave you for today. Next week, I will be back with more tarot books for healing, including a few books that are deck specific. And then I will share the decks with you as well, too. Okay? Thank you. Have a lovely rest of your day. Namaste.